March for Science Bristol. What a great sight. The fact that you're all here means that I don't really need to convince you that science is possibly, probably, definitely the greatest human endeavour that we've come up with. It's exciting, it's useful, it's progressive, it's important. But I also don't need to tell you that it's no longer good enough to assume that we don't need to make a noise about that. And better than that, that we need to share it somehow. So thank you for stepping out of the echo chamber that's social media and Twitter and joining people around the world to take action. So I was noticing the British Science Association are running a campaign at the moment to change perceptions that science is kind of done over there somewhere by scientists, and that it doesn't belong to the rest of us. Science, of course, belongs to and benefits all of us. Science is not just for scientists. So the British Science Association have been crowdsourcing ideas about how to better connect science and culture. And one idea that came forward was an idea of science-free Fridays. So that's where you spend a whole day not using or consuming anything that's been created by science. Obviously, you're set up to fail. And notice how culture is so fundamentally shaped and permeated by science. So in this thought experiment, if we're marching for science, we're marching for smartphones, we're marching for cinemas, for vaccines, for gin and tonic, we're marching for concrete, for lasers, for reflective jackets, because all of those things wouldn't be here without science. Some of them are vital. Some of them are life-saving, some of them are life-enhancing. But of course, none of these things are actually science. They're the output of science. They're the nouns that are created by what science can produce. They're the things that we can produce, but the point is that the value, and also where the misunderstandings lie around science, is in the process of science. It's the method. It's that stuff that often lies hidden. So it's that thing that science is as a verb, that awful social media thing of to science. Have you scienced it? Well, what is to science? To science is to make observations. It's to ask good questions. It's to test those questions out. It's to refine the questions. It's to be open to peers reviewing your work and making suggestions. It's about careful design of experiments so that they can be repeated over and over again, not just by you, but by someone else, somewhere else in the world. It's about being okay about exploring in a space of uncertainty and inhabiting the edge of knowledge, being in the unknown. It's about building on a proven body of knowledge based on evidence, not opinion. So with that in mind, I imagined what a science-free Friday would really look like. And I think it would be a bit like living in one of those old-school adventure storybooks where you reach a plot point, you find a problem or a monster or a fork in the road, and instead of making an observation and a rational decision, you roll a dice, which determines which page you get to turn to. So you're in a forest, in a clearing, it's always in a clearing, and there's a big pink fire that's blocking your path. So what do? You roll a 6 and you go to page 93 where you decide to hurl yourself through the fire because that might just work. Well, of course, we all perish on page 93. If we rolled a 3, we could have gone to the page where we'd met the witch that had been studying the pink fire for many years and knew how to tame it. So I know which I'd rather do. If you were like me, I would skip forwards to see which page and which roll of the dice got me to the bit where I didn't have an instant death. That might seem to some like cheating, but to me it seems like a rational choice. So, unfortunately, this dice rolling adventure is not so imaginary. In the real world, we do have these mystical pink fires that we need to face up to. They are the so-called wicked problems that are so complex, so entwined with different people and opinions and systems and structures, that they might not have a single solution. It might be that the best we can do is to tame them somehow, to manage them. And these wicked problems pose a threat to the well-being of the human species and to the other species we share our planet with, and to the planet itself. They're things like climate change, increasing energy demand, antibiotic resistance, the need for an equality of education for all. So these wicked problems, these pink fires exist. And unfortunately, we're all gathered here today in our imaginary forest clearing because in the real world, we're responding to a social and political landscape where people who are in a position to make these critical decisions, who control the resources we can use to tackle the wicked problems, they're not always choosing science in their toolbox. They're choosing to roll the dice instead. And this in itself is a wicked problem that we need to address. And it's bound up in all that human complexity. Science is part of the political, economic atmosphere that we live in, and it's not separate to it. It also has a lot to do with the way that science is communicated, the way it's portrayed in the media, mishandled, misrepresented. So I work in the building behind us, which is a science centre, where, like many around the country and the world, we aim to deliver our mission as an educational charity to communicate and share science with everyone. And my fellow speakers here today are some of the best science communicators that we have. And there are people sharing and opening up science in all sorts of places, on TV, in pubs. And we're doing it because we're passionate. But clearly, something more is needed. This march needs to be the start of an ongoing conversation, the catalyst for what together we all do next. We don't want to inch any closer to that Orwellian dystopia where a dominating party manages to convince us all that 2 + 2 = 5. As the very prescient media theorist Marshall McLuhan said right back in 1967, propaganda ends where dialogue begins. And there is absolutely no inevitability as long as there is a willingness to contemplate what's happening. So let's keep contemplating, but let's keep talking and noticing and doing and making sure that we're including everyone. The wicked problems of the world won't be solved by science alone. These are necessarily interdisciplinary issues where scientists are part of the picture. The arts and sciences share a common curiosity in the world around us, exploring what it is to be human. And Bristol, as we said, is a brilliantly creative city. There's a really fertile arts and culture landscape, which also provides a great space for science to flourish. Innovation happens where people are connecting, sharing ideas, saying yes to stuff and pushing forwards. It's also a space where we gently rebel and kind of push against the rules. And that's why we can be proud of things like Brunel's engineering, Dirac's quantum mechanics, Ribena, robotics, all of the things, computer chips. The stuff that's going on right now in our universities is world-leading research. We have incredible incubators and startups and amazing international collaborations. So we're in a great place to celebrate science, but we're in a great place to make a change as well. We need to play our part, all of us, scientists or non-practicing scientists, in a new culture of curiosity, where everyone's awake, where everyone is asking questions, discussing with experts, not settling for the first piece of information that we receive. We don't all have to be scientists. But if we can increase the scientific citizenship of our society, where people value the role of science in democracy and are advocates for science, then we can create the conditions for science to thrive. At its best, science unites across geopolitical boundaries. At the LHC in CERN, it literally crosses the French-Swiss border. The experiment is so huge. And countries signed up to be part of CERN before they signed up to be members of the EU. So it's something that can really join us up as human beings. So whether you're here today as an interested individual, as a scientist from one of our universities, part of one of the many groups that have contributed and supported to this, let's carry on. Let's unite around this common aim and get involved in a new public dialogue about the nature of science. Let's make sure it's open, inclusive, equal, and let's keep asking questions. Thank you.